Hello, everyone. So good to be with you. Okay, we have lots to do today, so I am going to talk quickly and then stop. I'm so glad to be back together with all of you. I missed you all last week. While I'm talking, just quick reminder, Naama asks that you bring a pen, a paper, cup of tea as usual. And if you have them, please bring along any of the notes that you might have from prior sessions. Find someplace quiet to settle in. And if you feel it comfortable turning on your camera to join us, it's a gift to all of us to see your beautiful, beautiful face. So that we can really be together. I'm Ariella Mortkowitz, the founding director of SVIVAH. It is so wonderful to start off my week seeing your faces. I'm not going to talk anymore about SVIVAH, but I am just going to say that I am so excited to be with you tonight for this amazing final session of this series that has been so spectacular for me personally. It's been so nourishing to be back in a space again and again and again with such a beautiful teacher. I will save my reflections for the end of tonight, but I just want to say thank you because I really have so appreciated being in this space of learning with each of you. I hope that this is just one of the many times that we get to see you because we have another reason to hang out together tomorrow night. We have Her Torah in honor of Shavuot coming up. I'll put the link in the chat in a second, but we would love to see you again tomorrow night if you feel like coming to hang out with us. A quick reminder, just to respect everyone here, show up as your fabulous self with whatever it is that you might be doing, holding, carrying, anything. An agreement between us that what happens here and is shared here stays here. And to please reach out and introduce yourself tonight. As usual, we're going to use the chat to change your name if it's not listed as something that we can, yell across the street and call you at. And what else? Oh, an agreement that if something comes up that we can all chip in the chat and translate, explain, add further explanation, ask questions if there's something that doesn't totally make sense, or something that you didn't catch. That's usually me who doesn't hear or understand the name of something, and we can do that together. And that's it. I can throw it back to Aliza or Naama, either one.
All right. Hey, so good night, everybody, or good evening. And thank you for being here on a Monday night in such a very full time in the year. I kind of feel like every time we met, it was like a big date. The first one, I think, was like Yom HaZikaron in Israel. The second one was Lag BaOmer. The third one, like every time there was something. And now we're like few days before Shavuot. And the funny thing is that we skipped one Monday, which happened to be Yemima's Yortzeit. And I'm wondering what it means that we needed time to just be with our own feelings with her, or I don't know, maybe just things sometimes happen. But as we're coming really close to Matan Torah and to Shavuot this Thursday, I feel very, very happy to share the practice of writing a melacha. And the melacha, the Hebrew word melacha, means craft. And it means that as we're walking into these gates, the first gate was the gate of Hakara, the second gate was the gate of Zihui, of Hitkarvut, the third gate, the gate of Zihui, and the fourth gate today, the gate of Tnuah. We're really also becoming masters of doing inner work. And one of the practices that we need is the craft called melacha. And as every person here who has some mastery in any craft, we know that it's like an endless process. You can always get better. You can always learn more. And I hope for everybody, it's a really wonderful journey to learn using this specific skill. You already have a lot of knowledge about the different pillars of the the work that Yemima suggested in her teachings. Yeah, so we're going to step into that. So just to start us off with some connection to last time. Last time we spoke about the omes and zihui, which is identifying the omes. And I wonder if people can just put in the chat a little bit of whatever they remember. Could be a word, could be just, something you remember. So just so that we're kind of having a thread, a stitch by a stitch. Thank you. Meeting the omes with warmth. Right, and we spoke about tichum and how tichum, demarcation, right, is to give warmth. Latet chum. Omes, being stuck, as opposed to being in a flow. And these are our two states of mind. We're either there or there, all the time. The omes is not all of you. It is a part of you, a particle that we can let go. So important. And that goes back to where we started with Hakara, that everything is partial and everything is relational. And the omes is just a part. And when it comes and tries to tell us that it's everything in its, really protective way to try to protect us and give us like a clear understanding of reality, we as learners can tell the omes, thank you so much, but this is just a part. This is only part of me. Omes pushes into narrow places, our soul always grows. This is so nice. Just start by recognizing the burden helps, right? It's an intimate place with ourselves that we're willing to say that, and self-acceptance. Right? The self-acceptance is a lot of what we're learning to reach the quiet heart. And the womb is a boundary, right? That we're creating containers. And these containers create new things. And that's the beautiful thing about this process. It's a system that never stops moving. And this is us. So let's take a minute. Thank you so much for these words. And I'll just read this, and then I do want us to journal a little bit. I belong to what happens, turning to joy. Thank you. And Kimberly, that's perfect. It's exactly where we're going to turn with the next Yemima snippet that we're going to write. So without any other spoilers, let's take a minute to just be intimate with ourselves and write, what is moving in me today? What do I come to class with? Just the most simple writing, and feel free to write words, or if you have images. If it smells or colors, however your consciousness speaks to you. And we're going to wrap up, so take a few more seconds if you need it. So we're entering today the gate of Tnu'ah. Tnu'ah means movement or flow in Hebrew. And I want to ask all of you, if you feel comfortable, just to close your eyes. And just let's pay attention for one moment to our breath. And to our heartbeat. And even if you can't hear your heartbeat, just try to imagine the blood flowing in your veins, in your arteries, back and forth, back and forth. And again, pay attention to the breath going back and forth, back and forth. And just see what comes out for you. Let's take 3-4 more breaths like that. And come back when you're ready. And just echo to us, for us in the chat, what words come up for you, or what feelings when you pay attention to these movements inside us, inside our system. As simple as you want, or as complicated. Okay, so letting go, attention to this intricate process in our body that we're sometimes, just walk with without knowing. Steps on the earth, right? Our blood moves, our breath moves all the time, all the time. This is life. It doesn't stop from the moment we were created as little fetuses, and until we die, we always breathe, we always have like blood moving, and we're on an earth that moves all the time. Curiosity, unsettledness, miracle, abundance, tension between the heart and the head. Thank you. So I just kind of try to do this kind of exercise with myself once in a while, just to remember that actually our basic reality is movement. And also in our inner system that we're learning all the time more and more about, because the more we explore the inner world, the more we are better navigators there. Also there, the real reality is movement. Sometimes we can feel the stuckness very strongly, and sometimes we can put a lot of attention on the stuckness, and it can feel like this is my life. But really, the undercurrent is movement all the time, all the time. The breath comes in, the breath comes out, the blood goes to the edges of our body and comes back. And Rav James, if you know him, I learned with him many years ago, and he said to me, when God created the first person, he necessitates him, right? This is what the Torah says. He blows air into his nostrils. It says that until now, every time we breathe air, God necessitates us. And every time we we blow the air out. There's a word for it for sure. Inhale and exhale. When we exhale, we give it back to God. So just with these thoughts, that we started with in the series, with like the waves and the echoes and the lights and all these things that move, kind of just to remember, because a lot of the work that I feel in Yemima is to remember that there's movement, to remember that there's divine moving in me, to remember that there's a system within me that is partial and relational, and to remember the movement all the time, the flow, what we call the yesh. And that the omes is definitely there, but is a part and is a particle on that big flow. And as the more we can find the flow, the more we can connect to the quiet heart, because the quiet heart is also always moving. Everything that is alive, I feel, always is moving. And even now that we're coming close to Shavuot, there was a whole movement from Pesach all the way to Shavuot. We counted that movement. And I feel in my life that real Torah that speaks to me is always changing. Words of truth are not the same year after year. It's the same words, but the truth changes. So there's a flow there, even there too. So with that little introduction, I want to start us off with a song that I thought about. This is a nigun, a Hasidic melody that I learned as a kid. And as we learned it, and I'm going to sing it and do the stops the way we were taught, but I'm going to make a little change for us as we are learning Yemima's teachings. I feel we need to change the melody a little bit. So here's how I learned it. We were like maybe 10 years old, and our counselor came in and they were like, we're going to learn a really cool Hasidic nigun. Okay, here's the first part. The Hasidim are leaving the town because they're going to the rabbi for the high holidays, and they're all so happy, and the weather is so beautiful, and they're getting on the carriage, and everybody sings together. Na 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 na. Hi na 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 na. Hi na 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 na. And all of us 10-year-old kids sing with a lot of excitement right after the counselor. So for us as Yemima learners, I want to say, it's not that we're living in our homes and going somewhere to be away from reality, but I'm going on the carriage with my family or my situation or whatever I'm in with all my life, and I'm just going on a ride. It's a movement, and I'm singing. Hoy 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 da 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 hoy da da ya da 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 hoy 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 da 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 ay ay da 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 hoy hoy da 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 hoy hoy da 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 da. I die da 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 da. I die da 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 da. I die da 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 da. I die da 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 da. And then in the story, the carriage gets stuck in the mud. The Hasidim don't know what to do. But what do Hasidim do when they hit a problem? They start yelling together. Ahey, 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 yeah, yeah. Oh, yo, yo, do, do, yo, do, 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 yo, do, 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 do. So as I was thinking about it today, I was like, so as Yemima learners, what do we sing? So I say, we meet a problem, we stop, we rest, we pay attention, we pray, but without the kind of like maybe same rush. So I'll sing it a little more gentle. Ahey, 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 ahey. We're almost willing to dance with our omis or to be with it until we can give it the warmth it needs and demarcate it. But there's still this section of Neringun. This is where the omis is. So the Hasidim pushed so hard that the carriage got out of the mud. And we rested so well with the omes and did our melacha, our craft so well, that at some point the omes drifted, and back we are on the road in our movement and singing again the first part, which is dai nai na 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 da 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 da. And so the Ningen goes again and again and again and again. And I hope it gives a little bit of feeling of what we're trying to go to do now in our craft. That there's the endless movements of flow and stuckness, and that the journey changes as we're learning to drive our carriage, as we're learning to remove the child to the side and let her have a great time with us, but we take the wheel as a learner, and as we're coming closer again and again, every time we get stuck in the mud. So I'm going to read to us the chelek for today, and I'm then going to put it in the chat. So don't worry about it. Because it's a little long, I'm going to do what I do with long chalakim, which is I'm going to read it slowly twice. And you write whatever words you hear, whatever you pick up. I'm not going to read it in dictation pace because it's a little longer, but I will put it in the chat because this is an important chelek to work with. This is the chelek where Yemima in her introduction teaches the basic rule, I don't know exactly, rules or instructions for how to do the craft, how to do the melacha. How does conscious development occur? Initially, establishing the right order through being aware of the good in you and of the unnecessary. Awareness of the good, awareness of the unnecessary. These two parts are usually blended, i.e., the learner, despite her talent and inner ability, can contain imbalance, undercompensation or overcompensation, i.e., lack of clarity, blockages, difficulties, being always quiet, happy. Sadness exists, and ups and downs occur. The purpose of the study is to balance, to bring you back, so that there will be no ups and downs in great effort to exist, but there will be a smoother line, more natural waves, like quiet brainwaves. The purpose of the study is to prevent the downs, and then each of you will try to record the good that is within. Because the order is reversed. There's always the unnecessary before the good, and through the unnecessary observing, and then illusion. I'm repeating. How does consciousness development occur? Initially, establishing the right order through being aware of the good in you and of the unnecessary. Awareness of the good, awareness of the unnecessary. These two parts are usually blended, i.e., the learner, despite her talent and inner ability, can contain imbalance, undercompensation or overcompensation, i.e., lack of clarity, blockages, difficulties being always quiet, happy. Sadness exists and ups and downs occur. The purpose of the study is to balance, to bring you back, so that there will be no ups and downs in a great effort to exist. But there will be a smoother line, more natural waves, like quiet brain waves. The purpose of the study is to prevent the downs, and then each of you will try to record the good that is within. Because the order is reversed, there's always the unnecessary before the good, and through the unnecessary observing, and then illusion. The text is in the chat box. And please take 2 minutes to see from the words you wrote down, or if you want to also look at the text, what are the words that first open to you? What are the words that speak to you, that resonate with you? And when you're ready, please share with us in the chat box. So I'll call us back in about 2 minutes. Okay, thank you. See that we have here quiet the brain waves. The purpose of the work is a quiet heart. Not good and bad, good and unnecessary. That's very important. The quiet heart is important, and the unnecessary, it's not a good and bad, true. Be aware of the good to bring you back. Is illusion the best word? Because to me, that is not truth. Yeah, so Yemima says that when you look at the world through the Omes lens, you see the world through an illusion. Focus on what's needful in the moment. Sadness exists, ups and downs occur. This is the reality of life. And we are really, the purpose is to balance. And the lines are becoming smoother, and that's so good. And then we can record the good that is within. Do you understand the last few words of the piece? Great. My teacher always told us, okay, focus. The way we focus on the yesh and the good, we also focus on the words that we do understand and wait for the havanot to come for what we don't feel we understand at the moment. Despite our talent and inner ability, right? The Omes still comes to everybody, even if you had like years of practice, even if you have a lot of talent and inner ability. It's not about your ability. It's not about your capacity. It's really a lot of practice. And necessary before the good is our natural, yeah. Very helpful. Great. Great. So what we're seeing here is really, Yemima says, when we're starting, we want to do craft, right? We want to do the melacha. We want to kind of like navigate ourselves. So one thing we need to know about our reality is that our attention is first will be attracted to that which is unnecessary. This is really a self-protecting mechanism. She calls it the right haseder hanachon, the right order, and haseder hativ'i, the natural order. She says the natural order is always you'll pay attention first to everything that is dangerous to you. And that is a good thing, right? Because you're trying to protect yourself. But because we know the Omes was definitely the right protection mechanisms for us as children, but it's not the protection mechanism that we need at the moment. We're not vulnerable the way we were. The fact that we're still turning all the time to these dangers is actually giving us a little bit of an illusion, or a lot of illusion. And turning our attention or our gaze to the good is a lot harder for us because it's not urgent and it's not requiring our attention right away. So Yemima says, first of all, just to establish the right order, to know that the natural order, which is natural, it's not a problem, you're not problematic, just the natural order is that you will pay attention first to that which seems to you dangerous. And what you want to do through your awareness is to make sure that you're aware of the good and aware of the unnecessary and able to tag them. And that's the most basic melacha. So these two parts are usually blended in our experience. And the learner, again, can be very talented and still everything can come up and everything can trigger. And Yemima taught that a moment before Omes, usually there's a moment of weakness. A moment before Omes, usually there's a moment of weakness. So maybe I was really tired and therefore I was really triggered. Or maybe I was already feeling other things before and therefore I was, because we know that not in every situation we get into Omes. So she says, if the Omes came up, probably there was like a moment of weakness before. So even if you're really talented, you will have weaknesses in life. That's part of it. And the work is really to just do the melacha, do the craft after the fact, and teach our consciousness, teach our hakara, that these are different parts, and we want to teach our hakara what's necessary and what's unnecessary. And therefore, we remember that the purpose is to balance. And I love it because that's like endless. The purpose is to balance. It's not to ever get to a specific place. The purpose is to balance and to know the balance will go here, the balance will go there, but I get more and more tools to balance. So the purpose is not to get anywhere, it's to balance. And if we're going back, I think we spoke about it maybe last time or the time before, there's something about the women body that is about that, right? All our cycle is based on a balance of hormones, and it changes all the time. So the point is not to be in a specific place, but to balance and balance again, and balance again, and balance again. And every time to have the waves a little smoother. So now I do want to dictate 2 important sentences, and I feel like we're going to the beginning. So I told you in the first class about my first lesson and how I got into that room with all these women around the table. And the teacher asked me to come a few minutes before, and she told me, stay for at least 4 classes. And she also told me, and I'm going to give you 2 sentences. And with these sentences, you have to work all the time, or you can work all the time. And these are the 2 sentences. So please write them down. The first one is, I identify omes. I separate it and demarcate it as unnecessary to my existence. I'll just repeat it. I identify omes. I separate it and demarcate it as unnecessary to my existence. The second sentence is, I identify yesh. I demarcate it as good for my existence. I identify yesh. I demarcate it as good for my existence. So because of time, I'm skipping a little bit, but I have here a whole thing that I brought for my grandmother, also going back to our first class. I'm just going to say in a sentence that my grandmother learned with my mom and my aunt and other people from the family, and they asked her at some point, give us instructions. I mean, these are a lot of really great ideas, but give us instructions. And she said to them, and you're welcome to write it down, a melacha, the craft, is to talk to yourself, to be intimate with yourself, to write what you thought, what you felt, what you said. Melacha is a kind of hitbodedut, a kind of like an intimate time with yourself. And she said, and examples are, for example, you can start with, I was hurt, or I was angry. Something hurt me. But then I'm starting to do the writing, and I want to identify something happened in the outside world, and it triggered my inner system. Where was the rejection coming up in me? What was the interpretation? What was I trying to get with that omes? And to be really honest with yourself, to try to see what emotions are coming up, what I felt was rejecting me, what was happening for me. And then she says, good luck, many kisses. She wrote it to them as like an email. So I want to invite you to try now, and it might feel a little intimidating, like, oh my gosh, I don't know exactly how to do it. And I want to say whatever you write is great. And the more you write, the more you learn about yourself. And I want to invite you to think about one thing, if possible, something that you can still remember the details, and take time to write in your journal about something that bothered you, something that hurt you, something that made you angry. And start really opening it up, writing down what was happening. What did someone say to you? What did you say back? What did you feel? What came up? And use these 2 sentences I gave to just, in your experience, start sifting between the omes and the yesh. Where is the omes there? Where is the yesh there? I really recommend, start with a free flow. If you want more instructions, I'm going to put in the chat more detailed instructions that I wrote down. But we're going to take now really 10 minutes or 7 minutes to really take our time and write it down and take intimate time with ourselves, time to come close. We're not judging ourselves, we're really trying to see ourselves. This is really a place to be seen. The omes wants to be seen and get warmth. We want to be seen, and we're giving ourselves this thing. If you feel afraid that someone will see this paper afterwards, no problem. You can throw it to the trash afterwards. It's not a holy thing. But just try to really open up to write it in a very honest way. So we're going to start now, the 7 minutes. If you have questions, try to stay with them. If you really feel like you want to ask, contact me in the private chat. Enjoy. This is a melacha. This is the craft. So let's start to wrap up. It's been 7 minutes. Unbelievable. Right. It's also fine to maybe feel like, oh my gosh, and I don't know if I did it right, and I'm not sure. You did it right. And the craft, like all women's craft, is Yemima said, aliyah retzufa. A stitch after a stitch after a stitch after a stitch. The most important is to do more and more melacha. It can be very tiny, tiny work, but to just try to keep some consistency of work and learning. There's a story about Moshe Rabbeinu when he goes to accept the Torah right now in Shavuot. Hashem shows him the future, and he shows him the classroom of Rabbi Akiva, a scholar that will live many, 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 many centuries after Moshe. And Moshe gets into the room and he sits there and he doesn't understand what's going on. Until at some point, Rabbi Akiva says, this we know because this is what God gave to Moshe in Sinai. And then Moshe feels like, okay, this is the Torah that I gave. Fine, they're still with it. I'm telling the story to say, Yemima gave some teachings, and doing the melacha is your work of interpreting it on your divine soul and your experience, which is your soul journey. So writing a melacha and sharing a melacha is really an intimate and beautiful thing to do, and a learning thing. You're a learner. We're all learners. So what we're going to do now is a little intimate, and let's try to open to it, or enjoy it even. We're going to go into breakout rooms for 7 minutes. And in the breakout rooms, if you feel that you can share your melacha, then please share your melacha. Everybody else's work is to listen, to really listen with an open heart and try to see where this person, what energy she speaks to you, what you resonate with. And you can ask maybe small questions. If you don't want to share your melacha, that's fine too. And you can share maybe some of your insights about anything that we learned in the classes or about the instructions of the melacha. But if you feel that you can share a little bit of the melacha, I feel like the conversations around melachot were very significant to me every time. And even when I felt this like, oh my gosh, I'm going to open my heart a little bit here, usually it was very rewarding and helping to deepen. So we're going to go into breakout rooms of 3. And we're going to call you back in 7 minutes. And then we're going to close together. Can someone share with us a little bit of what happened in the rooms? No details, of course. But just like, what was it like to share your melacha? Or to hear someone else's melacha? Sharon?
What I found was warmth and support and honesty and caring and safety. And that it was okay to be vulnerable in that space.
Thank you. Anything else? Any insights that you want to share with us from one of the rooms? Okay. Great. When you were away, Ariel and I were sharing a little bit. I told Ariel that I have, my grandmother wrote her melachot on a document in her computer. And after she died, I found it with all her, she came home and wrote the class and her teacher's teachings and her own insights, and also wrote her melachot in a separate document. And I told Ariel a little bit of some of the melachot, and it is really special for me to be able to read it. It's like reading her heart and her ways of rebalancing, and there is a lot of tenderness there. And thank you for sharing with each other and for allowing tenderness to happen. We're going to end. We have 5 minutes. And of course, afterwards, whoever wants to stay and talk, we're going to stay here for the 15 minutes of our conversation. But I want to give one last tool before we're closing our series. And I think it also fits with Shavuot. Shavuot is time of Matan Torah, right? Giving of the Torah. But I always feel it's also really a time of prayer, asking to being able to receive the Torah. So one tool that we learned today is melacha, right? To do the craft, to differentiate between the omes and the yesh. And the other tool that I learned and used a lot in Yemima is the tool of tefillah, to write my own prayers. And I want to dictate a short sentence to you. So let's write. Prayer is the tailwind blowing in the sails of mending and growth. This growth is not all on you. The one that yearns for abundance will receive abundance. Yemima taught, pray without rigidity. Pray without rigidity. Do not pray with force. Pray in small kamuyot, quantities. Pray as much as you can right now. We don't need to yell and break our hearts like with the nigun, with the melody of the Hasidic melody. We need to pray in the space that we have right now, for what we can pray for right now. We don't need to pray beyond it. And without rigidity. Prayer, she taught, is a place of receiving, being open. And that's a lot of the work that we do with the melacha. We open space for receiving. There's like a bigger flow going in us, directing us. And as we align with it, we find ways to direct ourselves to a quiet heart and to finding the right next thing for us, the diuk, the precision. So I want to ask you, in our really last minutes, to go to whatever you wrote to yourselves or to whatever you remember, and just put one word or one sentence that opened up to you, that you want to put as a prayer for yourself or for us in the chat box. And Yemima really believed in words. She said, words are like diamonds. You find the one that light to you, that shine for you, and you just connect to them, and they're your prayer. So it doesn't need to be something complicated. We don't need to write in ancient language. Just one word that you want to be the wind, the tailwind in your journey right now. So when you're ready, just put it in the chat. Thank you so much for these words. I'm going to read it to us as Tfilat HaDerech, as our prayer for the journey going out from here. Warmth changes everything. The learner trusts. open to our vulnerabilities, which can also be strengths. The child is seeking security, giving voice to virtues. May you recognize the unnecessary burdens you carry and separate them from the good in you. Returning to peace, be, patience. Everything we want, need is within us. Trust the Yesh. Understand that it is a gift. May we all be at peace in our quiet hearts. Growth is not all on you. Abundance. Praying to be open to the flow, to the Shefa. Thank you. We will stay here now for another 15 minutes. If anyone wants to share an insight, ask a question, or a comment. If you need to go on to your other things, please feel free. And thank you so much for being with me in this journey. And thank you, Ariel and Aliza, so much for enabling this learning. And I do remind you that it's a great opportunity to invest in SVIVAH so that they can do more things like that and donate whatever you can to make this a reality and bring more tenderness and vulnerability and safe spaces to the world.